You have questions? We have answers. Welcome to the Therapist Question Box with your host, Miss Lindsay Schiss.
Welcome back to another episode of the Therapist Question Box. We are here to answer your toughest questions, so ask away. Today, this is a listener question around how to help those in our lives that aren't seeking professional help. And with me today, I have Kelly King. Kelly, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
Kelly is a therapist at Therapy Utah and is awesome. She just is. She is fantastic. So I'm happy that you're here with us and happy that you're here to discuss this question. So, Kelly, what do you do if somebody is struggling and you feel like they need help? I'm going to say that word, but they don't want to get help.
It's a great question. I'm sure all of us can think of someone in our life that belongs to, or that pertains to. I think there's two ways to go. First, I would say, if you're really genuinely concerned about someone and you really feel, I do believe this person would benefit, right? Just to understand that helping them feel understood is the first step towards them possibly considering change, right? Let's get clear. Find out, what are their concerns? What are their fears? If they've shown some resistance, I'm labeling it resistance or not, you say, hey, have you ever thought about seeing a therapist or going to counseling or something like that, right? Really taking some time to put yourself in their shoes and understand, what's it like? How does this person think and feel about this? What are their real concerns? That could be such valuable work. The other direction you could go, I think, is considering what's going on inside of me that I've decided that I want this person to get help. I think there's a whole bunch we could explore there too.
Totally. Can we talk a little bit more about that? So what's going on inside of me that I feel like they need professional help?
Mm-hmm. Mostly that's going to point us to look at our own discomfort around someone else's behavior or their discomfort. When we have friends who are really struggling and we know that they're considering like suicide or things that are really heavy and scary, that's really uncomfortable for us. Right. We may feel like, I don't know how to help them, or I'm not sure when I should say something, or, I don't want them to do something drastic or life-changing, and I was responsible for that, right? So a lot of times it might be our own discomfort, and a lot of times it might be a genuine, thought of like, this is beyond my capability. I need to bring in some other help for them because I don't know how to help them.
Yes.
So there could be a couple things going on.
Right. But getting really clear about what's going on for you. Because it's really easy to like point the finger and say, of course you just need to do this. But wait, what's my discomfort? What's going on? Am I over my skis? Am I afraid? Do I want them to change because I don't like their behavior? Like, what's really going on for me where I feel that they have to do this?
Right. Like, I know in my own life, when I have someone, I'm just going to use describing words like a difficult person. What I don't like about that situation is that it shows me where my own limits are around my own integrity, around my own capacity. Like, I think of myself as a loving person. Okay. I like that identity. Feels good. I want to feel good about myself. I think in a lot of ways I am a loving person. When I am in close contact with someone who is pushing my buttons, annoying me, or difficult, that shows me my own limits around how loving I think I am. I don't like that. My ego doesn't like that. And so it's really easy for me to say that person really needs to get help so that I don't have to work on my own development of loving people, not just when they're easy to love, but when they're hard to love. Do you see how I would say?
Totally.
I wish that our brain always wants another person to do the effort so we don't have to change.
The path of least resistance.
Always.
Right? Yeah. So if we can point the finger at them, then we don't have to have the light shown on us. What is maybe we need to change or what's going on with us. Yeah. That makes so much sense. But boy, how do you do that? Like, how do you say when you're saying, I want to be that loving person? How do you sit in that space and go, wait a minute? I mean, is that just curiosity? Is that maybe taking a step back? Like, what does that look like practically?
I think curiosity is a big part of it. I would work to develop self-awareness, right? We think we are a certain way, but the truth is we need feedback from people close to us to really understand how we actually are. I like to frequently ask my spouse and children, what's it like to have me as a wife? What's it like to have me as a mom?
Oh my gosh. Are you serious? You really asked that?
And I hate the answers.
Kelly, that's awesome.
But I do care really about what it's like to be opposite me. So because I care, I ask those questions. Now, it's not like I receive all the answers and go, I agree with you. I do need to work on that. It's hard. I had a situation last night with one of my children and I got some feedback that was not pretty. And I think it's probably true. But it's the ongoing caring about our own emotional maturity and development, right? Like yes. I want to know and I want to be able to adjust. And so I think that goes back to someone that we think needs help, right? Really, all we have control over and where we need to put our energy is on us, because that's all I can control. And maybe growing my capacity to tolerate someone else's discomfort or to be with them in their pain. You know, when I work with so many clients, one thing across the board that continues to be difficult is we don't really know how to sit with another person's pain.
Oh gosh. Amen.
We want to solve, we want to alleviate, we want to get back to, but remember all these good things going on. But to be there with that person in their pain, that is a really good and hard skill to develop.
It's so, so true. And actually makes me think back when my mom died when I was 17 and it was a car accident. It was tragic. And I remember so many people would, in their effort, and as I say this, I don't know if it was their effort to make me feel better, but I think also alleviate their discomfort. They would say, don't you think she's in a better place? Aren't you happy? Like she can help you now from heaven more than she could help you here. And I remember just thinking like, no, not at all. Mm-hmm. Like this is actually like my worst nightmare just happened. And everything about this feels horrible. But, and subsequently, I developed kind of this cover story that was like, hey, look how great. She can help me from the other side and she's in heaven and da-da-da, like all this stuff. And the truth is, I didn't believe that at all. I didn't feel that at all. But I really think people were so uncomfortable with my pain, with the tragedy of it all, that they were trying to find a way to alleviate their own discomfort, to try to find a way to tie this bow around it. Let's just make this feel really nice and good. And the truth is it didn't. And there was nothing that made it feel nice and good. And now looking back, I think that was less about them helping me and maybe more about them trying to alleviate some of their own discomfort and sitting with me in that pain.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you say that, I think it's so true. Like it's really hard to sit with people and allow their pain because it makes us uncomfortable.
Yeah. I think we discount our presence, right? We discount just being with someone. We're such a society, we do. Yes. We like bring the meal and let me take you out to lunch and can I come help with this? But like everybody we know is going through something really hard. It may be visible, it might not be, but all of us have struggles. It's what it means to be mortal. And so just showing up in people's lives is enough. And I think if we would realize that more and just realize that's enough of a gift, we'd have more capacity or more patience to do that for people.
Isn't that so true? And just and allow that in our own lives too. Like allow people to just sit with us. I remember in grad school when I was studying to be a therapist, I remember one professor said, if I could teach you guys anything, and it was a DSM class, which is a diagnosing class. She said, it would just be to validate other people. Just like validate them in their pain, see them in their pain. People want to be seen and they just want to be understood that what they're experiencing isn't crazy, that they're normal. And boy, is that not the truth. Like somebody's presence is massive. I mean, I can think back on when I have felt people just sitting with me, not trying to solve it, not trying to make me feel better, not trying to say, well, I've had this happen, so it's going to get better. No, just like, gosh, that's hard. It's really, really hard.
It is.
But we've got to be okay to be uncomfortable.
Yeah, we've got to be okay not solving, right? And witnessing someone's pain and grief. And because a lot of times we internalize that and that's heavy and hard for us, right? But doing that is just so important.
Yeah. When you said that, I think that's a big part of it. It pokes a pain point of ours because we feel, we may not feel what it feels like to lose somebody in that way, but boy, we know what it feels like to have fear around that. We know what loss has felt like. Might be very different than what they're experiencing, but it pokes a pain point in us that sometimes we're not comfortable sitting with. Yeah.
Totally.
So really good. So let's talk about that. how do we recognize the difference between supporting somebody and trying to save them or change them?
Mm-hmm. That's really good. I'm just getting my thoughts around that. I think what I try to remember, here's what the research shows. People are most likely to heal or make change when there's two things present. One is autonomy, right? Their own sense of agency and in having choice around things. And the second one is empathy, right? When they feel seen and understood and cared for. And so anything that we can do to help promote those in another person, if we can just remember that that's our job, right? They're not asking us to be fixers, right? But how do we help them? I mean, the best friends I know or the most meaningful experiences I've had are people supporting me to get to my own clarity around a decision, right? Or my own change when I'm ready to change. Not because they told me to do it. Well, you should try this, right? You should try this. But because they just loved me and supported me enough, all my answers are inside. I think about that with every client I work with. They don't need me. They know, but they might need some help or support getting to the knowing. And so all of us can do that by how we walk with other people.
So good. I love that idea of the client is the expert in their lives.
Every time.
Every time. 100% of the time. I'm not the expert in their life. You are not.
No.
They are.
Yes.
But sometimes they need support getting there.
Right.
And helping them understand and kind of wade through some of the static that might be happening around the knowing about the best thing for their lives.
Right. And seeing themselves as an expert. Often I'll ask my clients, I'll say it this way, okay, in our relationship, you're the expert and I'm the professional. And I'll say, you are the expert in your life. Do you think of yourself that way? Never one time have I had someone say yes. Because that's a new title for them, right? To step into that, I'm the expert in my life. Nobody knows you better than you, right? You have that internal wisdom, that sense of knowing, a sense of presence. Like what therapy can do is help bring that out, maybe help give you permission to tap into that, to trust that a little bit more when, you know, it's been maybe damaged or maybe in the background for a lot of your life. And I think that all of us, whether we're in a therapeutic position or just as friends and supporters of others, we can play a role in that.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. And, you know, I think it's so important that we recognize, like, what's my role in that? How do I support? I'm not here to fix. I'm not here to be the hero in the story. They're their hero in their story. I'm just here to lovingly walk alongside. You know, I read an article years ago that talked about that. And it was somebody who was an ecclesiastical leader and he was trying to figure out his role. And he said, you know, I think my job is to be a Sherpa. They're climbing a mountain and my job is just to help gather their packs. And when it gets too heavy, take some of that load off, but to walk alongside of them. I'm not in front of them. I'm not behind them. I'm just right next to them as a Sherpa, helping them on that path up the mountain. And I think, boy, that is what is so important, right? I mean, if this person, our listener, is saying this person doesn't want to get help professionally, well, then what can you do? You can be that Sherpa and that steady guide to help them, right? And a calm presence. You know, I also think that requires maybe our listener to do some of her own work and this, you know, get really clear. What is my discomfort? What is my motive here? What do I want in this? And to really ask herself or themselves some of those hard questions.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, it might be that they're not sure. Maybe the listener thinks this person would really benefit from some professional mental health help. That's a valid position, right? That is. And I think we can spread the word about that. I think we're doing better to kind of overturn the stigma around mental health help that's been prevalent for a lot of years, but I think there's still more work to be done. And so you know, if you've had a great experience with mental health help, like let's spread that word. And I think it's okay to say like, hey, I don't know if this is right for you, but I know for me, I had this experience. Let me help connect you. Or, you know, maybe you want to offer to go with them to their first appointment, or have you considered that curiosity again, right? What's it like? Does your family do that? Does anyone in your family get mental health help? Have you ever considered that? There could be so many ways to like deepen the understanding and connect with them around that.
And to also get really clear, like what's going on for them?
That's right.
What's the fear? Has there been a stigma? Has it been you only go to therapy if you are broken or if your marriage is going to end in divorce? And so that feels scary for you. Like maybe getting clear about that before pushing the agenda would be really helpful.
So totally.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. But again, that requires you sitting with somebody in that pain, right? That curiosity requires you coming down with them in their pain and not just kind of looking down on them and saying, hey, I'm up here, you're down there, figure that out.
Yeah. And I think it also requires knowing where you end and they begin.
Yes.
And that's something I try to help my clients and myself, right? Like, where is that line of where I end and they begin? Recognizing another's autonomy, seeing them as their own person on their own path, honoring their right to refuse or accept any kind of help, how they see it. That is a very noble way to be in relationship with other humans, right?
Absolutely.
And so I think that's important.
I would think that's easier, even as you say that, I think about my own family. I think that's easier to do with people outside of my immediate family, where I end and they begin, right? What is my ego, my pain, my own expectation, whatever, and where do they begin? So I think that is something that is not that easy to do, frankly, with the people that are closest to us, right? But I agree with you, and we can get really clear about that. Where do I end and where do they begin?
Yeah.
What is about me and what is about them? What is their need? What is my need, right? Maybe, and I always do it in this circle, like, where do I end and where do they begin? Like, that's it. We're not one person, right? I think sometimes we get confused with that with marriage, like, you become one. Well, the truth is, I think of like a circle. The circle requires an ending, like, there is, where do I end and where do they begin, right? So when I think about it, it's, I'm part of a circle, but I'm not the entire thing. Does that make sense?
Totally. And I think it's really important to stay humble in the process. I mean, I guess those are my values creeping into that. But what I mean by that is this idea of, we don't want to be like, I went into therapy and it fixed everything and that person just won't go. Like, that's so it's undermining who they are as a person and really their right to choose in their life. We don't know what's best for that person. And so I think just kind of staying in a humble position around and trusting them, expressing our trust that they, in the right time, in the right place, may choose that kind of help and might not. Here's what we're seeing, but recognizing I don't have the full picture. I don't actually know what it's like to be them, but I am clear about what I can do and how I can support. I think that's really important. So
good. And often, again, that requires taking me out of it. Like, this is not about me or what I want to have happen, or, how this is going to look to other people. And we may say, oh, I don't do that. No. But it really is important, particularly in your own family unit, to say, wait a minute, am I doing this because this behavior is not what I expected? This is embarrassing. I think they could do better. And so they need to go get therapy. What is that? How much of that is about us and our own ego, our own pain showing up?
Yeah, I think we should get clear. Are we doing it because to make it easier for us to interact with this person? Or are we doing it because we genuinely care for another human being and we just want so much the best for them? Those are differences.
Absolutely. And, we were talking before this episode started how, we would all be billionaires as therapists if we could say, oh, you know what? The problem is them, right? I mean, every couple that comes in, I don't know if I've ever had one that really at the end of the day wants to say without saying it, hey, would you just fix him? Right. Or him saying, if you could just fix her, right? Yeah. We don't come in saying, I need to be fixed. I'm the problem, but it's easier to point the finger at somebody else.
Yeah.
Always.
It's our brain thinks that way. So we have to fight against that.
It's a path of least resistance when we don't have to do that heavy, hard lift. Yeah. It makes so much sense. So, again, if somebody is, let's talk about addiction. Let's talk about somebody that is suicidal. So some things that we can see are really damaging or that are actually threatening to their survival, their thriving. What do we do then when we've recognized, okay, the only person I can control is me, but boy, there's some behaviors here that are really concerning. What do we do about that?
I mean, I think it depends on the situation. If we're talking about a minor or, a significant safety issue, but if we're talking about an adult, again, I think asking some questions can be really important, right? Leading with, I'm super concerned about you. I care about you. And I'm worried about this. I'm wondering if some outside help, would be beneficial, or have you considered that? I would lead with our concern for them, right? And our promise, I want to, you're not alone. There are some phrases that are really helpful, right? You're not alone. Even when we get into suicidality, oh my goodness, I lost my train of thought though. Addressing it directly, what the research shows is really helpful, right? I know when people are this despondent, they sometimes consider ending their own lives. Have you ever thought about that? Asking that question directly. And then if that answer is yes, I'd like to go with you so we can keep you safe. Using some languaging like that, I think can be helpful.
I love that. Yes. Like the language that we use and trying to understand first.
Yes.
Right? The seeking first to understand. I think it was Stephen Covey that said that. Seek first to understand and then be understood. Right? Instead of, here's what I think, here's the problem, here's what's going on, this is what I see, versus help me to understand what's going on for you.
Right.
Like, I'm here with you.
Yeah. And then how can we support their empathy and autonomy, right? Giving them some choice in it. I think we should go to the hospital now. Can I come with you? Would you like to do that? How could we make that happen? Or, I think we're at the point where we really need to bring in some professional help. I recognize I don't get to make that decision for you, but I'm wondering if I could help connect you with resources. I'm wondering if we could collaborate and brainstorm together. How does that feel? I love questions like that, checking in with people. How does that land for you? What are your thoughts around that? Does it feel like I'm overstepping? I don't want to do that. And so I'm not really sure how to navigate this. So I want to check in with you.
So good. Check in with you, right? Like this is their life. It turns out it's not yours. No matter how close you are to this person, it is their life. They have to make the decision, and continuing to check in and say, how does that feel? And also providing resources. I love that idea. Here's what I think needs to happen. We need to go to the hospital. What does that feel like to you? How could I help you get there? Could I provide a resource with a therapist's name or some support? And then getting feedback from them instead of kind of bulldozing your way to do it. Because again, there's, I'm sure, a piece of us that feels like, oh, that feels safe. That feels better. I've tied that one with a bow. We can put that aside. Versus, there's some discomfort here and we're going to have to sit in that with them, right? Going back to that.
Absolutely. It should be a conversation, right?
Yes.
Not a lecture.
Yeah.
You should always be conversing. And that's a really good way to support that person's sense of autonomy, is inviting them to participate in their own well-being and safety discussion. Right?
Even if they are children, right? Even if they are minors, to say, wait, this is what I'm seeing. Help me to understand what's going on for you. And that they're an active participant in their healing journey.
Totally.
Absolutely. Right. And our role absolutely does change when it's with a minor versus an adult, right? There is a difference, but that regardless, that they are a part of the decision-making process.
Right.
Yeah. No question. So Kelly, we've talked about so many good things today. Is there anything that we have missed that you feel like is really important that we haven't hit on?
I think we've hit on it all. I think so much just self-reflecting when we feel like there's someone we know and care about that we want to get help, really turning inward and asking ourselves, what discomfort am I feeling? What's that like for me? What is my motivation? And I think it can be both. I think we can honestly care about someone and want them to get help and want them to change so we don't have to deal with how hard they are. Like those can coexist at the same time. But just getting some clarity around that, using some humility in that, recognizing where we end and someone else begins, honoring the whole personhood of another person as separate and distinct from ours, with their own capacity to make choices and have consequences and live their life. We need to bring all of that in.
So good. Oh, that's so many good thoughts there. I want to just wrap up with a couple of things that you said that I think that are so important is, recognizing what is going on inside of me that I think they need professional help. What's my discomfort? Getting really clear about that first and foremost, right? And then the work on self-awareness, right? What is asking yourself those hard questions, your self-awareness. Is this because I have some ego tied up in this? Is this my own pain that's being poked? Is there fear? What's going on inside of me where I really think this needs to happen? I love the reminder that all I can control is me. Like that is what I can control. I can offer my help and I can offer my steady presence. But at the end of the day, that's all I can control. I love the idea that change happens in autonomy and empathy. I just want to say that again. Change happens in autonomy and empathy. It doesn't happen in force or coercion or, fear. It happens when we're empathetic and when we allow people to be, they're the hero of their story. They know they're the best guides for their lives, not you, and allowing that to happen and to give choice in it. Here are some options. What do you think? We're allowing choice, right? Because that's what's going to stick anyways, right? At the end of the day. So, if you are carrying the weight of somebody else's pain and they're not ready to reach out, asking some of these questions may be helpful. I hope that this discussion was something that you can think about, whether or not you believe that a person needs therapy or not, but recognizing that you are often going to be with people in pain and recognizing how can you show up? What does it look like for you to help and stand beside another person, to be a Sherpa and walk up that mountain with them? I hope this episode has provided some insights and some clarity, because it's a journey that is not linear. It's not exact, but it can be a beautiful journey to help others on their path as we get clear about our own needs and what's going on for us. And again, recognizing that they are the hero in the story. They are the experts in their life, and that we are here to help and support on that path. We are thankful, Kelly, for you being here. Thank you for your insights, and thank you, listeners, for listening. And again, until next time, ask questions. We want you to ask those questions. So ask away, get on our website, therapyutah.org, and ask those questions, and we are here to break them down. And until next time, take care.